All right, do that again. So, Webster's dictionary defines psychopathy as a personality disorder characterized by persistent antisocial behavior, impaired empathy, and remorse. Does that sound like someone you know? Ramsay Bolton, right? Wrong. I am talking to you today about Joffrey, first of his name, and thank gosh, the only one, Baratheon, Lannister, Baratheon, whatever. Welcome to a new edition of The Black Dread, and I am, of course, Billie Jean, the Black Dread, the last Targaryen. We're going to go over today why you should all have the same white, hot, passionate hatred for Joffrey Baratheon that I do. And sometimes I hear him compared to Ramsay. Ramsay was older and he was a Bolton, so the flaying and all of that nasty things that he did, that's kind of their house. So if you're gonna say Ramsay, it was a psycho, then so was Roose Bolton, so was Red Arm, the first Bolton. They were all disgusting. So we're talking about Joffrey. So when we meet Joffrey in Game of Thrones, he's 17, but in the Song of Ice and Fire, Joffrey is the tender age of 12 at the beginning, like when Robert first comes to King's Landing. When he brings Joffrey with him, he's 12 years old. So when we first get introduced to Joffrey, he's 12. So, Joffrey, now I've got some notes here. This is going to contain lots of spoilers. I don't want to miss anything here. So, yeah, Joffrey, it's implied that he really, really looked up to his dad, Robert Baratheon. Well, who he thought was his dad, Robert Baratheon. He looked up to him. Robert's this powerful warrior. He won the 3 battles in one day. He killed Rhaegar Targaryen and he took the Iron Throne from the Targaryens, So he's, kind of a role model for Joffrey. However, Robert is kind of like not really feeling Joffrey like that. He's just constantly disappointed in him. And like when Joffrey was baby, Robert would go to pick him up and Joffrey would always cry. And I'm thinking it's because, it's not his dad. So Robert started to not really have that bond with Joffrey. And eventually he's just like, what, screw this kid. Because, he's crying all the time and he's whining all the time. He's like, always hanging up under his mother. Later for that. That's not the type of son that, the Baratheon man should have. So, he really looks up to his dad. And so what we know is that when Joffrey was, I'm going to say around 7 or 8, there was a pregnant cat roaming around the Red Keep. So Joffrey, in all of his kind goodness, decides that he's going to take that cat and rip it open and release the innards and guts. And he's running around the Red King, all proud of himself, like, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did. And he shows it to his father, Robert Baratheon. Robert, he just looks at him and his first response, his first reaction is to punch Joffrey. And he punches him so hard, he knocks out some of his baby teeth. He's like, that was shocking to him now. Unfortunately, there was no child protective services in Westeros. When a kid was born and he was deformed, they would just leave him in the woods to die, So maybe now we might have gotten Joffrey some help. He might be okay, but this is what happened. Now, Robert's brother, Stannis, he was absolutely disgusted by what he saw Joffrey do. Now, this is Stannis Baratheon, who lived in Storm's End under siege for over a year with no food. Stannis ate dogs. He ate rats. He ate cats. He was going to eat the horses and he was about to eat his dead before the Onionite came through with salt beef and onions and saved them. So if Stannis Baratheon, who's lived through a siege and saw men starve to death, is disgusted by what he sees in his nephew, then it was bad. So we have also another incident of, let me get to my notes. Yeah, so when we see Joffrey and Arya have the fight, in season 1 where they have the little fight and Arya takes Joffrey's sword and flings it into the water, Robert's brother Renly was laughing at Joffrey like, you let that little girl take your sword? Oh, wow. And Robert's kind of like, like super embarrassed, like, wow, this is my son and he's just going to be embarrassment. And, there's times like when we hear Robert's thoughts, when we're reading A Song of Ice and Fire and we can hear Robert's thoughts through Ned Stark, Robert's saying things like, because, Robert doesn't really care about the kingdom. He's whoring and he's drinking and doing he's like, I kind of want to like just give up the throne and just go out and, my merry way. But the thought that keeps me up at night is that boy on the Iron Throne with his mother in his ear. That is what scares Robert Baratheon to death. The thought of Joffrey being king. Not good. So let's talk about something else here. So now Tommen, Joffrey's little brother Tommen. Tommen is, he's presented to us in the Song of Ice and Fire around 7 or 8. So he's, you know, he's a little kind of dim-witted. So he's running around, he finds this little deer and he takes it. And what does Joffrey do? He finds this deer that Tommen has, skins it, and kills it right in front of him. So, early stages of a serial killer. Torturing small animals. Uh-oh. Not looking good for you, Joff. Okay, so now, this is the thing, though, that pisses me off the most. Now, I like my conspiracies. You know, I'm real big in my Game of Thrones conspiracies. Tommen, now we know that Joffrey beats Tommen. You know, even Joffrey even makes, you know, jokes about locking Tommen in some of the secret rooms like the Maiden Tower, and he keeps trying to find Maegor's secret cells because he wants to lock Tommen in there. So we know he's mentally abusive to Tommen. You know, he's killing animals in front of him. We know he's physically abusive to Tommen. He hits him, he beats him all the time. But now, this is the thing that pissed me off. Tommen says something to Marjorie, in the book, blink and you'll miss it, quote, I go away when Joffrey does things to me. So now I took that to mean like I go away, like I go inside myself, just find your happy face, find a happy place, happy place, happy place. So, Joff, what the hell, yo? Like, were you molesting Tommen? So I just was like, all I know is that Joffrey is lucky that I was not invited to his stupid wedding, because he would not have gone out like that. It would have been much worse for it. So we all know that Ramsay Bolton and them, they didn't really do things like that to start. You know, a lot of people, we never really hear about that type of dysfunction. But when he said that about Joffrey, I was just like, okay, I have a new level of hatred for him. And I also kind of have a new level of hatred for Cersei, because she enables him. Anything Joffrey wants, he gets. Anything he wants to do, he can do, you know. So Joffrey's just the worst in the world. Now we have the boar. The boar kills Robert Baratheon, and Ned is trying his hardest not to put that boy on the throne. But we know what happens there. Joffrey ascends to the throne. Joffrey Baratheon, first of his name, Your Grace. Oh my God. First thing he does is he, against all tradition, fires or dismisses Barristan Selmy from the Kingsguard. Because he's like, you know, you're too old and you let Aerys die and you let my father die, even though he wasn't there, you know. So he does that, and Barristan Selmy is like, oh, word, you know, Barristan the Bold. Now, this is a man that Robert Baratheon took from Rhaegar's Kingsguard, pardoned him, and put him on his Kingsguard because of his valor, his courage, and his bravery, and just everything about Barristan Selmy says Knight's Guard, Kingsguard, you know, Kingsguard. And Joffrey gets rid of him and replaces him with Sandor Clegane. So now, one thing that we don't get to see in the book is when Stannis is dismissed, you know, he takes off his armor and he's like, even now I can cut through the 5 of you like slicing through cake. In the book, what Barristan really does is he's laughing at Joffrey. He's like, phew! Stannis, he's just like, Stannis is gonna rip you out of that throne, and I can't wait. And so they were like, oh, Joffrey's like, word, that's how you feel? Sees him, Barristan Selmy. Now, the man who was supposedly be too old to protect Joffrey, bam, 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 washes them down and escapes, and then he goes off to, you know, go be with Daenerys. So that's how Barristan leaves, like a boss here. So that's the first thing Joffrey does. Joffrey, now we all saw him like when he had Samara Trent show my wife, you know, and he just has his Kingsguard beating Sansa all the time. So we only get to see that maybe once or twice. But in the book, he beats her constantly. And we even have one of his Kingsguard, Aerys Oakheart. Now, Aerys Oakheart does not get any play in the Game of Thrones show, but in the book, Aerys Oakheart is a point of view character from Feast of Crows. Aerys Oakheart is in Dorne talking about, whoo, I'm glad I'm out of there because I couldn't hit that girl no more. I had to beat her every day, and it was starting to like eat at my soul. You know, it's like I have to obey my king, but it's starting to like literally legit eat at my soul, and I don't know how much longer I can take this. So Aerys Oakheart is like, whew, glad to be out of there. Yeah, so this is this is the worst. I mean, this I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much more worse it could get than him beating Tommen, but it's like when they have the Battle of the Blackwater, Joffrey's supposed to be this brave, he's like, I'm gonna give my uncle a smile, a red smile. But then we see in, with Lancel Lannister in the book, this is Osmond Kettleblack who does this, who's like, Joffrey, your mom wants you to come back to the tower in the middle of the war. So now you ever know that person whose mouth is running off, he's talking, and his mouth is writing a check that his behind can't cash, and he's getting ready to get in a fight, and he's like praying to God that someone gets him out of it, because Joffrey's all like, yeah, when Stannis comes, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, and so then Osmond Kettleblack is like, your mom wants you, and Joffrey's like, oh, for real? Oh, well, you lucky my mom called me, because I would have so we all know he's got this false bravado. He's a punk. He's, just a disgusting punk. So now we know Tywin Lannister makes Tyrion marry Sansa, and what Joffrey insists upon is that he is present in the room when Sansa and Tyrion have sex for the first time, so he can laugh at Sansa and Tyrion, because he's a dwarf, how awkward it's going to be and how embarrassing it's going to be for Tyrion, because he knows Sansa doesn't want him. Sansa's this young virgin. She's got to have sex with this ugly imp. Now, Peter Dinklage in Game of Thrones is not really ugly, so when we see Tyrion, we don't think hideous. In A Song of Ice and Fire, Tyrion is absolutely hideous. He loses his nose in the Blackwater, like not just the scar that Tyrion gets, he loses his whole nose. He's got these two eyes, and we'll do a video on the Tyrion and his two eyes, because I have a theory about that. So he's just totally gross. And Tyrion is like, at this point, Tyrion is at his wit's end with Joffrey. He's like, yeah, I'm good to be there when you bed her for the first time. And Tyrion, a couple of times we saw him smack Joffrey and, stand up. But this time, he was like, basically, don't mess with me, Joffrey. This is not going to end well for you. I will F you up. And Joffrey's like, I'm the king. I can do what I want. And even Tywin Lannister, Mr. Reigns of Castamere, flooding children in their own home, told Joffrey, chill, you're going too far. If Tywin Lannister tells you to chill, you're going too far, you've gone too far. And yeah, Joffrey, he just went too far. So now, yeah, we get to my favorite part here, the purple wedding. Now, it's called the purple wedding, not like the red wedding. It's called the purple wedding because the poison, well, two reasons are here. The poison that is used to kill Joffrey is called the Strangler. And when Oberyn Martell describes it, it's purple. Also, people say that it's the purple wedding because as he was choking and gasping at his, his neck, and his face starts turning purple. He's got the wine spilled all over him. He starts turning purple. So they call it the purple wedding. Now, during the time when he's choking, Tyrion is like, huh, okay. Not like panic, like, he's choking, what's going on? He's just like, okay, so I wonder if I left the stove on. Like, literally, like, doesn't care. Tywin's like, Cersei's crying, oh, my son. And Tywin's like, he's gone, honey. Just let him go. Let it go. Like, no one is mourning him. Joffrey's, crying at the excitement and everything. But later on, he's like, I'm kind of relieved that he's dead. Now, this is my favorite thing here in the world. Jaime Lannister, Joffrey's dad, direct quote, Joff was no more to me than a squirt of seed in Cersei's cunt. So, not even Jaime Lannister gave a damn about Joffrey when he died. So, why should we? Why should we care that he even lived or died? I mean, when I think about the nasty things that we saw him do, and then I remember the things that he did in the book, I have hatred for him. I have hatred for Cersei. I have hatred for Pycelle. I mean, all of the people who protected Pycelle, called the noblest boy that ever lived. What? So, these people are all just absolutely disgusting, and I hope each and every one of them gets what they deserve, because, we see Cersei die with the bricks in season 8, but right now she's kind of still, she's still alive. So, hopefully when we get book 6, Winds of Winter, we will see Cersei get her comeuppance. It was just, Joffrey was just a complete disgrace. He's this absolute animal. I'm so glad he's dead. I hope you guys are glad he's dead. I know Tommen is sure glad that he's dead. And yeah, that's Joffrey. So what are your thoughts? Because normally, now me as a mom, I can always sympathize in almost any situation, a mother's pain at losing her child. But when I heard that Joffrey, when I got to see and read Joffrey die, I was kind of like, yeah, look at you, Cersei. I was kind of like, ding dong, the witch is dead, witch oh witch. I just that mother instinct in me was, I just didn't, because I'm thinking if Joffrey should have been put down like a dog. He should have been put down like a dog, and they should have focused the efforts on Myrcella or Tommen. Get Myrcella married to a nice knight, or a nobleman, or Tommen, groom him. But they spent all that time on Joffrey, and look what he did, and look what happened to him. So karma, maybe not. Who knows? Anyway, I hear my maester at the door. I think he's got my lemon cakes and my big glass of milk with the poppy. So I'm going to go ahead, settle into the Red Keep. I will see you next time on The Black Dread, Billie Jean, the last Targaryen, Fire and Blood.